Hey there, island dreamers, locals, and anyone craving a slice of paradise. Welcome back, or welcome for the first time, to the Fun and Key West podcast, where the vibe is always laid back, the stories are salty, and the drinks, well, they're definitely frozen. I'm your host, Michelle O'Connor, your unofficial tour guide to the Conquered Public. Whether you're planning your first trip, your fifth trip, or you're just daydreaming about trading the cubicle for the ocean breeze, you are in the right place. Here's the deal. This podcast is your insider's guide to all things Key West. We're talking where to eat, hello, conch fritters and key lime pie, where to drink, spoiler alert, there will be rum, where to stay, and all the quirky, wonderful things that make Key West the one-of-a-kind paradise we all love. Plus, we'll keep you up to date on the latest happenings, festivals, events, maybe even the occasional Hemingway lookalike sighting. And just to keep things spicy, we'll be bringing on some amazing guests now and then, locals, business owners, and people who know the island like the back of their sandy hand. So grab your flip-flops, pour yourself a cold one, and let's escape to the island state of mind together, whether you're tuning in from your hammock or your commute, while wishing it was a hammock. We've got all the Key West goodness coming your way. Thanks for being here. It's going to be a lot of fun in Key West. Let's dive in. Hey there, history enthusiasts. Michelle here with Fun in Key West. And today's episode takes us off the beaten path. But trust me, it's worth the detour. We're uncovering the incredible story of Bruce Hall, the last standing structure of the historic Ruth Hargrove Seminary. This isn't just an old building. It's a time machine wrapped in solid concrete from its 1889 beginnings as an educational hub to serving as a wartime hospital, Navy commissary, and back to its scholastic roots. Bruce Hall's history is packed with stories you won't believe. Get ready to explore how this unassuming spot reflects Key West's resilience, innovation, and sense of community. Plus, I'll give you all the reasons why this historic marker is an absolute must-visit for anyone who loves peeling back the layers of Key West past. Grab your bike or golf cart and join me for an episode full of history, curiosity, and a touch of adventure. Good morning, everybody. I am Michelle with Fun in Key West, and I am so glad that you're here for another exciting episode of Historic Marker Monday. This one, I have to tell you, whenever I started to explore all of these historic markers, this one took a little bit of time to find. It's because it's not in the heart of Old Town. You're going to have to wander off and find this place on your own. But I'm telling you, if history's your thing, be sure to check out all of the historic markers in Key West. And that's what we do each Monday is we take these historic markers and we uncover the stories and everything that's behind these markers that you find out through Key West. And today's marker has it all. Music halls, war hospital, Navy chow lines, even a rooftop garden. And today we're talking about Bruce Hall. It's the last standing structure of a once proud seminary that helped shape Key West's educational wartime history. And this is located over at 1310 United Street. And if you're wandering over there, and here's the thing, you're not just going to wander over there. You're going to have a reason to go there. But it's kind of interesting if you wander over there to see how the history of Key West plays into what's happening today in Key West. But if you wander over to United Street, hop on your bike that you rent and run over there, or if you're renting a golf cart for a couple of hours, just checking out all of Key West, this is your opportunity. Head over there. And you're going to notice a stately old building, and it looks like it has a ton of stories to tell. And you know what? It really does. This seminary, this structure, not necessarily this structure, but this place, started back in 1889, and it is the Ruth Hargrove Seminary. And we give thanks to the Methodist Episcopal Church South and the Women's Board of Home Missions who founded the seminary. Bishop Warren Candler teamed up with 7 Key West businessmen to build the seminary. So back in 1889, the bishop comes to town and he taps on the shoulders of 7 prominent Key West people. And he says, I want to build a seminary. And then we're sure, let's get it done. So they started off in rented buildings, which, is humble beginnings, but that's where everybody starts, right? So they started off in rented buildings. Then in 1901, they built their first permanent structure. It was a colonial frame structure, and it had dormitories and recital rooms and faculty living quarters. And that is located at the United and White Streets. And that is now where the National Weather Service building now stands. So if you're wandering through and you find the National Weather Service building, that's where that first original structure actually used to stand. And if you think back as to what they were trying to do with the school, it was more than just a school. It was a movement. It focused on education, on music, and community. And if you think about it, that is what draws us to Key West. It's that community, it's the music, and it's learning all about the history of Key West. Then we build Bruce Hall, and that is constructed and built in 1911. And this was the third building in the seminary complex. It was built with what's called Indian block, a fireproof solid concrete block. And let me tell you, this was cutting edge at the time. We've come through the Great Fire, and so there's a lot of emphasis on how do we make sure structures survive weather, fire, all of that. And so this was built with Indian block, and it was solid fireproof. And if you look at the structure today, very reminiscent of the cigar factories. It's sturdy, functional, and has a little industrial, but very little character. But inside Bruce Hall, you had 12 recital rooms, 2 music rooms, a chemistry and physics lab, a library, a principal's office, and the crown jewel was a 600-seat auditorium. It was the largest in Key West at the time, 600 seats in this structure. Plus, because of the way it was constructed, there was a rooftop garden for entertaining. So can you imagine if you're going over to the seminary, you go to a music recital, and then you head upstairs to sip on punch and stand on the roof and look at the stars. That's not a shabby way to spend an evening in Key West, right? Comes along World War I and World War II, and the war changes everything. The U.S. military purchases this seminary ground, and it becomes Key West's primary hospital during both world wars. It served wounded soldiers and sailors from around the region. And this peaceful center of education and music was suddenly filled with stretchers and nurses and the echo of wartime urgency, not the music that people were used to hearing within that building. But after the war, the original wooden buildings were all torn down, and Bruce Hall was stood all by itself, stood alone, and it was the resilient survivor of 2 very different eras. Now we're going to shift into the post-war, and Bruce Hall becomes the Navy commissary. If you're not familiar with a commissary, it's basically the early version of a neighborhood store, but it's military style. If you go on base today, they have the commissary, and that's where you go. Later, after the Navy was using it, the Navy then moved into the Gatto cigar factory, and then they transferred the deed to the building to the Monroe County School Board. So it returned back to its educational roots. So it goes from a seminary to a wartime hospital to a Navy supply hub, back to the classroom. And so Bruce Hall really has come full circle. Why does this matter? I think we sometimes forget as to the history of Key West and everything that has occurred in Key West. We all come down to Key West and we're enjoying Duval Street. We're enjoying the water activities, the nightlife. But there has been a lot of famine and feast in Key West. You go from the wreckers to wartime to the Depression era, and there's been a lot of things that have occurred. But Bruce Hall, which was one of the original structures left of the Ruth Hargrove Seminary, stands today as Somebody had a vision. Somebody had foresight to say, hey, I want to build a school. And then it transferred into being part of the military effort. And then it's back to the school. I think it represents resiliency, adaptivity, and the value of community institutions. You stand there and you think that, Shell, it is just a block building, but it has so many stories to tell, a ton of stories. It's not flashy. It's not one of those flashy, pretty buildings, but it has so much history behind it. And today it's being used for what I would say its original purpose. The inspired people who came to Key West and started are like, this is what we intended it to be. And that's what it's doing today. And I find it very satisfying that buildings come back full circle into their original purpose. So the next time you happen to be wandering down United Street, and I'm telling you, you're not going to be wandering down United Street for anything in particular, but make it to your goal to head out off of Jabal and go a couple streets over, 3-4 streets over, go to Midtown. Find these historic buildings and read up on the stories of why they are there. What are they being used for? What used to be there? And then what I like to do is I like to stand there and go, I wonder what it was like, and imagine where those other buildings were and what life was like. Check out all of the historic markers. You're going to hear a story, a constant theme that runs through these historic markers as you wander through Key West. If you're looking for a self-guided tour on those historic markers, you can head over to FunInKeyWest.com. There we have all of the historic markers marked there. I'm going through and updating them. And I'm going to put together a map that shows you where each one of those are located so that you can wander through and check them out at your own pace. While you're there, sign up for a book club. We are getting ready to announce the August book. Hard to believe it's almost going to be August, isn't it? This year has flown by. Sign up for our book club. We read books every month that have some sort of connection to Key West. And if you hit the book club tab at FunInKeyWest.com, you'll see everything that we've read and what we're reading this month. Be sure to check that out. I am Michelle. Thank you again so much for stopping by and checking out what we're doing for Historic Marker Monday. And every day we pop in, give you a little bit of history of Key West, give you something to try, give you a must-try list. And I hope you pop in later this week. Talk to you later. Bye. All right, history buffs. How much did you love peeling back the layers of Bruce Hall's history? From its notable start as a part of the Ruth Hargrove Seminary to becoming a wartime lifeline, a Navy commissary, and then a teaching hub once again, Bruce Hall is proof that some buildings really know how to evolve. Bruce Hall isn't flashy, but its history is legendary. It's a testament to Key West's resilience and heart. And honestly, isn't that what makes Key West so fascinating? Your mission, if you're in Key West, take a stroll or a bike ride to United Street and check out Bruce Hall for yourself. While you're at it, explore other Key West historic markers. Trust me, there's a story on every corner waiting to surprise you. Want even more history tips and tools for planning your Key West adventure? Head over to FunInKeyWest.com, where you will find self-guided historic marker tours, must-see spots, and so much more. And hey, while you're there, sign up for the Fun in Key West newsletter and our book club. Think of it as your insider pass to the best island secrets, fun facts, and upcoming episodes. If you enjoyed geeking out with me today, here's how you can show the love. Like this episode if Bruce Hall's story blew your mind. Share it with your fellow history-obsessed friends. Let me know what your favorite historic marker in Key West is. I'd love to hear your picks. Thank you for tuning in today. Until next time, keep exploring and always stay curious.